As Oscars host Johnny Carson said on the 54th Academy Awards stage, how will the Academy explain the voting procedure? And who gives a damn? Welcome back to the Revisionist Almanac, the show that looks back with hindsight on past Academy Awards ceremonies to determine what the voters got right, and most importantly, what they got wrong. Before we start things off, we hope you'll take the time to rate and review our channel on whatever podcast streaming platform you're currently listening on, as well as finding and following us on every app from Instagram to TikTok to Twitter X using our handle @RevAlmanac. Normally I do this with my co-host Adam, but he was unavailable for this episode. Do not worry though, because we are joined by a different guest each episode, and boy do we have a good one for you today. Please join me in welcoming one of the hardest working people in the movie podcast community, the co-host of Best Picture Cast, Worst Picture Cast, and 1001 by 1. Ladies and gentlemen, give a round of applause for Long Island's own Joey R. Joey, thanks for being here, buddy.
No problem, Andrew. Thanks for having me. And don't worry, I talk enough for two people, so we're good. We're covered.
You're the James Brown of podcasting. I mean, you are literally doing this always. I don't know how you keep up on it.
Stay up all the time. Just don't sleep. And
have a really good supportive wife, right?
Yes. Oh yeah, that's very important. she needs me to contain my energy somewhere, because otherwise I'm going to be talking to her about I'm going to be like, "Oh, did you see this?" And now I'm going to talk about this for 4 hours.
Yeah. This is a good release for sure.
100%. No, she's awesome. So I'm very lucky. It's fun. Get to hang out with her and the kids all day, and then when everybody goes to bed, I watch a million movies.
All right, now you're the third member of the Best Picture Cast crew to feature on the Almanac already. We had Kieran B on the inaugural episode for 2010. We just had Grant C on the 2011 episode last month. Really looking forward to seeing what you bring to the show. As a reminder, this show again looks back on past Academy Award ceremonies with the luxury of hindsight, and we will determine what should have won for Best Picture, Best Director, and the 4 acting categories. Now, Joey, before we get into all the categories, let's specifically kind of talk about 1981 as a whole really quickly.
Sure.
So tell me, you kind of brought 1981 to the table.
Unfortunately.
And I don't think that was thought through at the time. It seemed like an impulse answer. So now that you've had a chance to kind of dive into 1981 a little bit and really, watch multiple movies from the same year, how did you find the experience as a whole for 1981?
So it's a very interesting year in not a great way. In the great way, there's a lot of really cool, influential, really great directors earlier in their career doing a lot of things. So that was exciting. I mean, most of those I was pretty comfortable with. And then on the other end, there's just a very kind of stale, overly emotional, look at what we're doing, forcedness to a lot of things, where there was just this big kind of gap of this is really interesting, of the Evil Deads, of the Scanners, of Possession, just Raiders of the Lost Ark, all these young, really interesting things going on. And then there's just where it's all right, we're at the end of our career maybe, or we've been doing this for a while. So you really feel the gap in this year. And because like you said, this is the 4th episode. I think the first 3 episodes were great. The fact that you guys did that, because I think this is a big endeavor, and the fact that you kind of found your voice so early is very impressive. But this year is interesting because as a premise, as a premise, hindsight kind of, gives you a crutch. I like that the Oscars vote in the year, right? Because when you eventually, when you get to episodes like Nomadland year and Coda year, and I think they're deserving winners, but hindsight looks differently. But when you're actually in the year and where, people are, society is, I think it's really that matters. And that's why, and when you look at transitional years of the Oscars, where they're going, where the voting body is, what's going on in the world, those things all matter. So, maybe in another year I'll be difficult and I will just vote 100% like the Academy. Unfortunately, this year I couldn't do it.
This is, of the 4 we've covered now, this is by far, I'll be very blunt with it out of the gate. This was the worst year in terms of what the Oscars actually voted for compared to what I'm going to be voting for here shortly. I mean, there was such a culture clash year. You had, like you said, you had all these young renegade rebellious voices in Hollywood emerging, and then you still had this stale, conservative, kind of old. I don't like it was just it was feast or famine. You had the spectrum was very wide. I literally built a physical spectrum of movies to keep track of things, and I'll post that on social media once this episode goes up. But it was very much one or the other. There was not a lot of middle ground. It was boring as shit or just crazy stuff.
Yeah, and listen, some of the boring shit, I gotta say, some of there was value in there, and I did appreciate some of it. But it was such a weird year because so many, like, as I was looking at the things I really loved, like, they're not Oscar-y things, but they're very influential. So that's where I'm kind of looking at the hindsight of things like, all right, maybe in the year it's not the most Oscar-y thing, but I want to bring it up because it's more relevant now 43 years later than some of this stuffier, flatter material.
Yeah, and 1981 really kind of kicked off, in my opinion, most of the Best Picture winners in the 80s decade were kind of in this same mold of Chariots of Fire. They're not all that way. Amadeus is very much different, and Platoon as we get towards the back end of the decade, but kind of on the front end of the 1980s, it felt like they were in this same groove of going with the safer, slower, more conservative approach to things.
Especially after how wonderful the 70s were. It was such such a switch. And, it's just, again, as the voters age, right? Like what they're voting for ages with them. So, these kind of, it needed the next generation.
Yeah, I think over the next hour or so, I think you and I are going to prove that next generation has lived on more than I think a lot of these other films that I don't think have aged as well. And we'll talk about those, I'm sure, aplenty. Now, without spoiling too much, Joey, was there a worst movie you watched during research to this that you want to kind of like really slam at this moment? Or do you want to save something?
No, there was just a lot of kind of the same where, even if the movie was different, it was the same kind of nonsense.
Okay.
So there wasn't like one where I was just like, it was just like, all right, this is very fitting of this year.
Yeah, I specifically pulled two out, and I think I'd seen all of the films that I did prep on, aside from maybe one or two. So most of them were rewatches, even though they've been a while. Were a lot of newer watches for you?
Yeah, this was a big. This was actually a big gap year for me, so I'm very happy this worked out. I say that now. During it, there was times I was like, I'm just going to tell them I'm not doing this. But there was, like, again, like the Evil Deads, the Scanners, those sorts of things, I'm very comfortable with. Other things, on Golden Naps, not as much.
I'm not going to sugarcoat it at all. My least favorite watch of the whole damn research was Chariots of Fire. That is not, I'm not going to, there's no secret to that. I think Chariots of Fire is, and for anyone who's listening right now, I recommend you go over to Best Picture Cast and check out the ranking episodes. You can easily hear what Joey thinks of Chariots of Fire. He's taken plenty of shots at it over there, and where it falls in the rankings, I'll leave to listeners to go find over there. But in my opinion, I think Chariots of Fire is one of the 2 or 3 worst Best Picture winners of all time. And I think by the end of this, we're going to eviscerate it pretty heavily.
Yeah. Again, I wanted to come in here and like stand up for what the Oscars did, but unfortunately this year I can't because, please go listen to all our rankings, but I've called it the least fun movie I've ever watched. It's the least fun Oscar winner. There's there's more depressing ones, but just an experience. It's nothing. It's nothing. It's very unfortunate that it's in the canon of greats.
Yeah, even something like Cimarron or whatever, that's an objectively terrible Best Picture winner, but there's some inherent value to kind of going back and watching it and laughing at it. And you guys just did an episode over there that's a fantastic episode. People go check it out.
Thank you.
But yeah, you're right. Chariots of Fire is one that there's almost nothing redeemable about it in terms of entertainment value. It's brutal to watch.
It's tough. A great song really tricked people.
And the song's not even in it that much, and it comes in way late at the end.
Yeah, and you don't know who anybody is. It's tough.
It's rough, yeah.
It's tough.
So I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna hide my cards. Chariots of Fire, that'll be the last time probably I mention it for the rest of this episode. If you want to throw it a couple of bones, I'll let you.
No.
Okay, okay, okay. Well, we will leave it to the voters. If there are voters out there on the social media community that want to defend Chariots of Fire, you will have an opportunity because where it won things, it will be eligible. So before we jump into these categories, it's worth mentioning that if both Joey and I agree with who actually won the Oscar for any of the 6 categories we're about to dive into, that selection will skip the online voting and get automatic entry into the Almanac. I don't see that happening. I think the chances of that are probably 0.0%, but we're about to find out. Okay, Joey, let's jump into Best Supporting Actress.
All right.
So the actual nominees for 1981 were Melinda Dillon for Absence of Malice. We've got Jane Fonda for On Golden Pond, Joan Hackett for Only When I Laugh, Elizabeth McGovern for Ragtime, and winning that year was Maureen Stapleton for Reds. Joseph Kennedy Rogate. I'm hoping Kennedy's your middle name. It probably isn't, but we're going to find out.
Definitely not.
Okay.
Definitely not.
Well, I took a shot. I've got 5 more attempts. For anyone that's not in the know, I'm desperate to find out Joey's middle name. He won't tell me. I'll see if I can catch it by the end of this episode.
0% chance.
Okay, Joey, you're going to be up first for this category. Let us know who you have nominated and who you have winning Best Supporting Actress.
All right. So this was, I think, the thinnest category here. I had a little bit of trouble here. It's also, I have 0 in relation to the Oscars here.
Wow. Okay. Now,
Yeah.
you had mentioned off air that you were maybe going to do some category manipulation just due to the thinness of this category. Let's find out. Okay.
I played it right. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. They're not in any order. I'm going to go through them, then I'll tell you the winner.
Okay.
Jenny Agutter, An American Werewolf in London. Nancy Allen, Blowout. Oh, wait, no, I have 1 in here. Maureen Stapleton, Reds. Sorry. Karen Allen, Raiders of the Lost Ark. And Mary Steenburgen in Ragtime.
Okay.
And my winner is Karen Allen, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
All right. Is there anything specific about her performance versus the other 4 that you have nominated that you felt elevated her to the win? Is there something that stands out for you?
I think the entire film, I'm in it with her. Like when she's not there, I feel it. Like I miss her a lot when she's not there. I love what she does, everything she's in. I love her against Harrison Ford. I love her when she's on her own. The way they present her is fantastic. You know, like that gimmick's been, how many times have we seen the drinking contest, right? Like that's
Right.
like I really think she's fantastic in this. And I really, she's not someone who I'm like, oh, Karen Allen, but here I think she's out of this world. And I love that movie when she's in it. When she's stuck in the plane, I can watch that scene all day.
the Steenburgen nomination surprises me a little bit. I like the boldness of it, and she's a fantastic actress who's just got tons of great supporting roles. But do you want to talk to that performance a little bit?
Yeah, so that movie, I didn't love the movie, but her and one other person really stood out in it. And as I was going through this, I had the other 4 very locked in, and I was kind of like, all right, what do I do? And I was like, she's what I'm thinking about when I think about that movie. I think, I'm sure people love that movie. Like, it's nothing to dislike. It's just not really for me. Like, I have nothing bad to say about it particularly. But I think she was one of 2 real standouts.
It's kind of an odd movie in the Milos Forman filmography. I hadn't seen it in a long, long time.
I'd never seen it at all.
Okay. It's a long one for sure.
That was... Listen, I love Milos, but wow, it was long. And I think... but she's one of my 2 big takeaways.
Now, who was there, like an actress that was right on the cut line for you that you, even though it was a thin category, was there like who was number 6 that almost got in if there's somebody?
So to be completely honest, I was kind of building up to 5 more than cutting down.
Okay.
If I really say I didn't get to Ragtime, because again, the other 4 were very locked in. Like I was on them. Maybe I would have thrown in Melinda Dillon from Absence of Malice.
Okay.
I thought that was a fine film. I thought she was fine, like good, like nothing bad to say. It's just, I didn't think it was super something that really stood out. And again, I think it's just a thinner year in that. So, like Stapleton was good, but I think Karen Allen was the standout amongst the supportings.
Okay, well, let me jump over to my nominations real quick, and we'll see if anything comes out of that. So I've got Jane Fonda for On Golden Pond. I do not particularly care for the movie, but I think Jane Fonda does
Reasonable.
adequately in that film. Nothing to slouch there. I've got Joan Hackett for Only When I Laugh, another movie that I don't think is particularly great, but Joan Hackett is fine enough for me in that movie. I also have Karen Allen for Raiders of the Lost Ark. I think that she plays perfectly off Harrison Ford. It's an iconic role in my opinion. Big fan of Karen Allen there. I've also got Maureen Stapleton for Reds. I think there's other things about Reds that I like more, but I think she does a perfectly fine job. And then my fifth nomination is going to go to Jennifer O'Neill for Scanners. I really
Oh, that's a
liked
good one.
I really liked what O'Neill did. I wasn't sure if she fit the mold of a lead actress or a supporting. I felt she was more in the supporting position there. Um, at the end of the day, this category was atrocious. I mean, there's no two ways around it. I have 10 actresses on my power rankings of the 26 movies I watched. There just were not a lot of good opportunities for female
No.
supporting actresses. It's a shame. And I've mentioned this on the 2011 episode. I mentioned it on 2010. The quality of opportunities that women are getting nowadays compared to when you go back to the 80s, it's like night and day.
You feel it.
And oh my God, it's brutal. And I can only imagine how much great stuff these women would have done in the 80s if they had gotten some of the material that the Kate Blanchetts of the world are getting nowadays and the Tilda Swintons. And there's so many better opportunities now. But at the end of the day, I think that Karen Allen is my favorite part of.
Oh, shit.
She's my favorite part of Raiders of the Lost Ark in a lot of ways. Like you said, when she's in the movie, she just takes over the screen. She's got great screen presence. Love what she does. I also have Karen Allen for Raiders of the Lost Ark. I actually thought you were going to be way off on that one from me. So I'm happy that we were kind of in line there.
That's amazing. Honestly, did not think we were starting this way. That's fantastic.
Okay. Well, that certainly gives us good positioning because now when we go to a social media poll, it's going to be Joey and I together with Karen Allen, and then she's going to be going head to head with Maureen Stapleton. I'll quickly say to Maureen Stapleton, I think she's perfectly fine in the role in Reds. Yes. I think Reds has flaws to it, and I'll talk about that some more later. But
I think we're going to talk about Reds a lot today.
Yes.
So I think that's all right. I think Reds is going to get a lot of talk. I thought Maureen Stapleton was good in it.
Yes.
I just think when I was like Steenburgen, that's my memory of Ragtime.
Mm-hmm.
Maureen Stapleton, she's down the list when I'm really getting into that movie.
Yeah, and the only one that was kind of on the bubble for me, if I had to pull somebody, I hadn't seen the movie in 10 plus years. Excalibur is a crazy, dumb fantasy movie, but I actually like Helen Mirren in that movie.
Oh, okay.
So I almost put Helen Mirren in, but I ended up, Jennifer O'Neill got the fifth spot for me for Scanners. I thought she was really good in it. So again, best supporting actress, when we get to the social media poll, you're just going to have two options. You're going to have Karen Allen, who Joey and I both picked, and you're going to have Maureen Stapleton. So I think that those two women will do pretty well against each other on the social media polls.
I think that's actually a great vote because people who have seen it, I think that really comes into taste. I think neither bad, nothing's egregious or ridiculous. That's a really good straight up Twitter, social media battle.
Yeah, you're going to get the cinephiles obviously backing Stapleton, which makes sense. And then I think, especially on Instagram, which seems to be a little more of a casual movie following versus Twitter X, I think Karen Allen's going to probably do better on the Instagram side of things 100%. If I'm just predicting how things are going to go.
I agree with that.
Let's jump over to Best Supporting Actor now. For 1981, the Academy nominated Ian Holm for Chariots of Fire. They've got James Coco for Only When I Laugh, Howard E. Rollins Jr. for Ragtime, Jack Nicholson for Reds, and winning that year was Sir John Gielgud for his role in Arthur. I'm going to go first on this one. So my nominations, Joey, for Best Supporting Actor are, I have Bill Kerr in the film Gallipoli. It's an Australian war film which deals with running in a far better way than Chariots of Fire. If there's a running movie that I'm going to watch ever again in 1981, it's going to be Gallipoli and not Chariots of Fire. I don't know if you got around to it.
My hardest cut comes from that, but it is not Bill Kerr.
Okay, so I thought Bill Kerr was good in it. I also have James Coco for Only When I Laugh. Again, don't love Only When I Laugh. Joan Hackett got a nomination. James Coco, I like James Coco's work. I think he does pretty well in it. I also have Howard E. Rollins Jr. for Ragtime. I think he's the best part of Ragtime. When I go back and think about Ragtime, Rollins Jr. is going to be the person I think about. I've got Jack Nicholson for Reds. I think he does really well in it. He's not in the movie a ton the way I kind of remembered in past watches. And then my fifth spot is going to go to Michael Ironside for Scanners. You and I had talked about this offline. I wasn't sure if I was going to put Ironside in the lead actor or the supporting actor. I kind of flip-flopped. I talked to a couple of friends of ours who I know are big Scanners fans. A lot of people told me to lean in the supporting actor direction, so I went that way with Ironside. Hopefully that doesn't upset you and you're happy with Ironside there.
Yeah, that's one of the few places we're going to match in a few minutes.
Okay. However, my win for Best Supporting Actor is going to go to Howard E. Rollins Jr. for Ragtime.
Wow, nice. That's a good win.
I didn't expect to pick that when I kind of like pre-planned this episode and started some prep. Didn't have Howard E. Rollins Jr. in there. And maybe it's because Ragtime is so long and so wandering, and there's just not a lot to that movie. But when Rollins Jr. is on the screen, he's magnetic. He captivated me, kept my attention. And so for me, I wanted to highlight his role there. And so I gave him the win.
Very nice.
Okay. Joey, David, R.
Man, 0 for 2. This is getting embarrassing.
Man, it's getting worse. Okay. All right, Joey. Who's your selections for nominations and win for Best Supporting Actor?
All right. Jack Nicholson in Reds. Mickey Rourke in Body Heat.
Ooh, okay.
Howard E. Rollins, Ragtime. I think with Steenburgen, like it's the two of their movies. That's how, I know they're both supporting, but it's their movie. And that's in my head. Griffin Dunne, An American Werewolf in London. And finally, Michael Ironside in Scanners.
Excellent.
My winner is Jack Nicholson in Reds.
Wow, okay.
I know he wasn't in it a ton, but I don't care about that. When he was in it, he was fantastic. I think he did exactly what you want a supporting actor to do, and then some. I think, he's so good. This is such a really cool time in his career, and I love that he came in and did this role.
Yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, it was kind of a favor to Warren Beatty. I think. Yeah,
and you know what? But he didn't. It didn't play like a favor. Like he came. Maybe that's why he signed on. But man, he came in and he was great.
He's Jack.
He was Jack, and
yeah.
I love Jack. I mean, you and I have spoken about Jack a lot on the One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, the re episode on Best Picture Cast. Go listen to that. It's great. But man, this was a first watch for me for Reds, and I thought he was great.
Yeah, my only complaint with it is I wish he was in it more. But like when he's in it, he dominates like Jack Nicholson always does when he's in a film.
Yeah, he's like picture perfect supporting actor in this.
Now, neither of us mentioned John Gielgud, who actually won Best Supporting Actor that year. How do you feel about his role in Arthur?
Listen, my toughest cuts were Bill Hunter in Gallipoli, right? That was my that was my like. I wish I could. I watched Arthur. I kind of had a little higher hopes for it because that's something I'd seen as a kid, and I remember not liking as a kid, and just remember like, it's just not. I didn't love it. He was fine, but again, it's just not something I ever want to watch again. And he didn't stand out enough. Where I think it's because if you're looking like even James Coco in Only When I Laugh was better.
Mm-hmm.
Howard Rollins was better. Jack Nicholson was definitely better. So I just think within the category that was already selected, he was down there. It just didn't stand out.
Yeah, he was almost at the bottom of my power rankings for the category, and it's not like a super big slight on him. I just think that there's better performances above him. And much like Chariots of Fire, Arthur just did not connect with me in any sort of way. I couldn't get in. Kind of like you, I saw Arthur years ago. I was probably, early teens, somewhere in that range. Hadn't gone back to it in a long time. That movie sucks. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I don't like.
I'm trying to be nicer here than I normally am, but yeah, it's a tough hang.
Yeah, it was rough. And the one person I almost got in, I was trying really hard. I wanted to get Lee Van Cleef in for Escape from New York.
Yeah,
I know that movie's not like awards quality, but it's Lee Van Cleef. It's good, the bad, and the ugly. He's a legend.
100%. Yeah. The one person I really tries to squeeze in, but I would have had to take Rollins out. I wanted Brad Dourif in.
Okay.
because Brad Dourif, Milos, what better combo is there? But I just couldn't take Rollins was just too good. Like
Yeah.
Dourif, I love. Like Rollins was really great.
Yeah, and I don't feel like I've seen him in a whole lot of films, Rollins. I mean,
Me neither.
which is a shame because what he does in Ragtime is really impressive to me.
Yeah, no. Again, him and Steenbergen, it's they outkicked the movie. I think.
Okay, well, so this will go to a social media poll where we have three different options. So you're going to be able to choose between the Academy's pick, which is John Gielgud for Arthur. You can go with Howard E. Rollins Jr. in Ragtime, which was my pick, or you can go with Joey's pick, which is Jack Nicholson for Reds. Something tells me that Jack Nicholson and just the name Jack Nicholson is going to sway you a lot of votes. I feel like you should be pretty confident in winning that category.
Hey, it's all about our choice, not about the votes. The votes are just periphery.
They really are, because for anyone who's listening to this, by this point, the 2011 voting will be up, and I'm going to get absolutely hammered. I'll probably go 0 for 6, but that's okay. Sometimes the point of this Almanac episode is to highlight things that people aren't familiar with. And
Exactly.
so, yes, I have no problem if I lose to Jack Nicholson and Reds there. Okay, let's jump over to Best Actress. For 1981, your nominees for Best Actress were Susan Sarandon in Atlantic City. You've got Meryl Streep in The French Lieutenant's Woman, Marsha Mason for Only When I Laugh. You've got Diane Keaton for Reds, and the winner that year was the late, great Katharine Hepburn for On Golden Pond. Now, this is noteworthy because Katharine Hepburn is the only actor or actress to this day with 4 wins to her name. Technically, she has 3.5 because she tied one year, but for all intents and purposes, she's got 4 wins.
It's 4.
Yeah. Okay, so Joseph Samuel.
0 for 3.
Man.
On your own podcast, getting embarrassed like this.
I've got no chance of getting your middle name, but, we're just going to keep trying. Okay, Joey, it's back over to you to start things off. Who you got nominated? Who do you have winning for Best Actress?
All right, so I will say, this was way tougher than supporting actress. I had narrowing this down and then picking a winner. There is
We're getting to the good stuff now.
Yeah, there's talent in this category this year.
Yes.
Whether you like the movies or not doesn't matter. There is just some really great acting.
Absolutely.
All right, so I went with, again, no order. I'll give my winner at the end. Susan Sarandon, Atlantic City. Katharine Hepburn on Golden Pond. I did not like that movie, but I thought she was fantastic, and it shows why she won 4 awards. Diane Keaton, Reds. Isabel Adjani, Possession. And Kathleen Turner in Body Heat. And my winner for the award is Susan Sarandon in Atlantic City.
Wow, what an awesome win. I love to hear that.
I watched that movie. I going into that movie and just kind of looking at what it was, I was not into it. It sounded just like derivative of all like 20 years earlier nonsense. And I was so hooked in because of her so quickly in that first kind of casino scene. And then when she leaves and walks up to her apartment, I was in. And it was because of her. And I think she was so good. So, yeah, I'm all in on Susan Sarandon. And this is a powerhouse category. Even I was just like, wow. But when really, as I went down to it, and, I redid all of these yesterday. I had this all locked in a couple days ago, and I redid every category the other day. And I couldn't, it was Susan Sarandon for me.
Yeah, I mean, Atlantic City's it was one of the ones that I had not seen prior. It really caught my attention. I was stunned at how cool it was. It was like between Susan Sarandon and Burt Lancaster, I think is also really excellent in that movie.
Yep.
Did not expect Atlantic City to be way up there. And I know our friend Mike over at Cinemust, he had mentioned on one of the social media platforms that he's a big fan of Atlantic City before I had seen it. And so I just want to shout out Mike. You're spot
Mike's
on
the
with
man.
that. Yeah,
Mike's
Atlantic City's great.
When Mike tells you something's good.
Exactly. So was there somebody who was right on the cut for you?
Yeah. So outside of everyone who's nominated, because really I don't think any of the Oscar nominated were bad. I think they were all in the running for me. But one that was not in nomination that was really tough for me was Sissy Spacek in Raggedy Man.
Hmm.
Great. She was that movie for me. I really I'm thinking about. I was telling someone at work about that today. They're not going to watch it because that's an absurd recommendation, but she was very good in it. And so really, I had like 9 on this list of like, okay, I need to get 9 people into 5. This is really hard. But outside of those who were nominated, Sissy Spacek was the toughest.
Yeah, it's a strong category. I'll give my nominations here in a second, but the 2 or 3 right on the cut line for me, it was really excruciating to leave a couple of them out, and one of them we'll talk about here in a second. So my nominations for 1981 for the best actress, I've also got Kathleen Turner for Body Heat.
Yes,
Think she's fantastic. Body Heat kicks ass.
she's
Love that
so
movie.
good.
She's so, yeah. Her and
I'm
William
gonna
Hurt
watch.
together.
Oh my god, I think I'm gonna watch Body Heat like once a week for the rest of my life.
Yeah, you can feel the humidity like
It's
coming off of
unbelievable.
the screen. That movie's so good. Yeah.
I was sitting in a cold room sweating.
Yes. Yeah. So Kathleen Turner has to be a nomination for me. I'm going to go outside the box on this next one. I've got Nadja Brunkhorst. She was in the movie called Christiane F, and it's a German film that's really hard to find. And she's playing a teenager who's addicted to heroin. It's a really strong teenage acting performance, doing some really tough work in terms of dealing with drug addiction. So I recommend, if you've never seen Christiane F, go check it
But
out.
it's really hard to find. You have to be like pretty
Hard,
special to find
yeah,
it. You need to
yeah.
be a special kind of movie watcher to find it, right, Andrew? That's why
Right.
you're telling us.
Yeah. You gotta go to the underworld of movies to find it.
Yeah, you don't get that on Netflix. You get that from like the special. Like you have to be a special kind of movie critic in air quotes to get that.
You got to
right?
know a person or two to find
a
a German film from the 80s. Yeah, but if you get a chance, check it out. Nadja Brunkhorst is excellent in that movie. I've also got Katherine Harold in Modern Romance. I really like Albert Brooks movies in general, and I thought Katherine Harold was really good in that kind of romantic comedy. I also have Isabelle Adjani for Possession. She is, I mean, it's hard to put into words. It's hard to
Unbelievable.
define what she does in that movie.
I agree.
And then I've also got Diane Keaton for Reds. So my toughest cut was Susan Sarandon. She was at 6 for me. Just couldn't get her in. I would have loved to see her get the spot. At the end of the day, though, I think there's a clear winner for me, and it's not even close. I'm going to go with Isabelle Adjani. Again, this is a thing where I know I'm not going to get any sort of social media love and votes. Don't care. If you haven't seen Possession, seek it out the moment you quit listening to this episode. I don't care if you're into horror or psychological stuff. Check the movie out. It's demented. It's crazy. It's wild. And what Ajani does, especially in the subway scene,
oh
it's
my
like,
god, she was my second in this.
Okay,
she
I figured she was high up for you.
She was right there. She was number 2.
Okay, I mean, if you see Possession, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't seen it, go check it out, and you'll know what I'm talking about. I think she's crazy good in that movie.
That I had never seen Possession, and then on 1001 during the piano episode, where the times where Harvey Keitel's not throwing a fit or doing something stupid, Britt had recommended Possession, and I had never seen it before, and wow, I think I've watched it 3 times since. I don't know how that movie missed me my entire life, but what a bummer. It is so good. She is fantastic in it. Great. That's a great win. I don't hate that at all.
I mean, it literally drove her insane from the stuff that she had to do in terms of the physical. Like I said, I'm not going to ruin anything for people who haven't seen it, but check out that movie in the subway specifically.
You can't talk about the freaking movie. This is the problem with something like Possession.
I know. Yeah, you'll only spoil it, but check it out.
It's worth watching. Just watch it.
100%.
And that you could watch it like a normal person. You don't have to be a special movie fan like Adam. Right. Like Andrew. You don't have to be a special movie fan like Andrew.
Yes, it is easy to find. I think it's on like Shudder at this point, right?
Yeah, it's very easy. I think I watched it once on Shudder, once on like Max. It changed, but it's very available.
Yeah, I mean, so shifting a little bit, I want to talk about Katharine Hepburn for a moment. I know she won the award. I have tremendous respect for Katharine Hepburn. She's a Hall of Fame, all-time GOAT level actress. I just don't think that there's enough on Golden Pond for me to really warrant a whole lot of love.
Movie's tough. When we were talking, that was the most, when we were talking about like the kind of cool, looking forward, going to be, trying to change things. Renegade, you said, all the way to conservative. That's the most conservative movie.
Yes.
I think she's the only thing of value in it, really.
It was. I was dreading that movie more than Chariots of Fire going in. I think it's a little better than Chariots of Fire, but I just did not want to watch it.
Well, I think that there's more depth to it than Chariots
Right.
of Fire. Like, there is depth to it. Like,
And it's got good actors, regardless. It's got Henry
Right,
Fonda.
but-
It's hard to,
right. But Katharine Hepburn, I really think she was great in it. Like, I when I was watching it, I was like, all right, well, I'm glad I watched it. But and then as I was doing this, I was like, you know what, Katharine Hepburn, she deserves it here.
Yeah, she's great. I'm not gonna to hate on her. Okay, so really quickly, I want to talk a little bit more about Katharine Hepburn. We got a question from our buddy Tom Duncan over at Greatest Movie of All Time podcast. Tom, appreciate you for always delivering lots of questions. Sometimes maybe a little bit too much, but we'll take them.
Restraint is a thing, my friend.
It is, yes. Okay, so here's Tom's question specific to Katharine Hepburn. He said, "Does her fourth Oscar give her GOAT actress status? Yes or no?"
I don't know. I mean, that's tough because then it's just breaking everything down to awards.
Right.
So
Are we just counting? Are we just counting rings at this point?
Right. Like, there's people, there's actors and actresses who haven't won who are fantastic. So listen, she's all timer. It doesn't matter that she has the four, like, in that sense, but based off just that, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to like look into this a little bit, and I realized she has 12 nominations for lead actress alone.
That's unbelievable.
That's arguably harder to do than 4 wins. I mean, that's
Holy
a crazy number. Yeah. All for lead, like Jesus Christ,
She's great. I've never seen something. I can't,
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen something where I'm like, oh, enough.
Yeah. If I had to rank her 4 Oscars wins, this is to me the bottom of it. I think that Guess Who's Coming to Dinner is her best performance. I like The Lion in Winter, Morning Glory, fine. So for me, there's nothing about what her winning on Golden Pond does to cement a GOAT status.
No.
Like, I don't care about those things the way, maybe the people who like to get into the Jordan and LeBron debate. Like, to me, it's not just about a ring or a number or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, no, listen, it's great. It's I mean, those, I clearly care about these things. I talk about them endlessly in my life, but I don't think that's the only measure.
So I know on our previous episode when we had your buddy Grant on, one of the things that came up was who is the greatest actress of all time. We had talked about Viola Davis, we had talked about Cate Blanchett, etc. If you had to pick right now, who's you can define it as favorite, best, who stands out to you as the top of the top on actress level? Is it Meryl Streep? Is it someone else?
Greta Lee.
On that one alone, right?
That's it.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. That's tough. I mean, I think it's kind of easier to go generational.
Mm-hmm.
Meryl Streep's hard to say it's not, but then when you look at something like Meryl Streep, all timer, but then Kate Blanchett, it's like, all right, yeah. When has she ever not been phenomenal? So I think it's just a tough question, and I just think, I don't know. I think power ranking like that is tough, but man, there are people doing wonderful things out there, and I think we're lucky to get to see them.
Yes,
that's my cop-out answer.
I think you're right, though, that it's hard to, the same way with people who get into sports debates, it's hard to break things down generationally. And I think you just have to segment things in decades or periods of time, really.
Yeah, because again, I think like, all right, yeah, like Viola Davis, like, great. Cate Blanchett, great. Meryl Streep, great. Katharine Hepburn, great. Bette Davis, great. Joan Crawford, great. So
and
like,
they're doing different things. Like, in terms of even going back to our 1954 episode when we're talking about Grace Kelly doing 3 or 4, 5 movies in a year. It's just,
well, you were mean to Grace Kelly, so
I know.
You were a dick. You're just jealous of Grace Kelly, greatest living actress of all time.
Yes, her beauty angers me.
Clearly.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it's hard to define. I think Katharine Hepburn, for her time and place, is in the conversation. There's no ifs, ands, or buts, and that's good enough.
Listen, as long as people are watching movies, and hopefully people remain curious and watch movies that are more than 5 years old and want to learn about it. I mean, Katharine Hepburn is going to be someone who's always in the conversation because we should go back and watch things, right? Movies are only 100 years old. Let's learn and watch, and because it matters, and there's people doing really great things, and Katharine Hepburn's one of them. And maybe she's not your speed, but I can't imagine many people. I'm sure people say they don't like her. I can't imagine there's many people who say she's bad.
Yeah, and I think the takeaway from this question to Tom, I know you're listening right now, don't live in black and white. Let us play in the gray a little bit.
And I feel like Tom asked the question that led to the conversation on 2011 too. Maybe you get new material.
He did.
Maybe you get new material, Tom.
We've got some more questions from Tom here at the end, so we'll see how those play out and if he does himself any favors or not.
He just keeps asking the same questions every year.
Right. Okay, well, we'll move over to Best Actor here in a moment, but let's again recap Best Actress. You've actually got 3 options when we get to social media. All 3 strong choices. You can go with the Academy's pick, which is Katharine Hepburn for On Golden Pond. You can go with Joey's pick. He's got Susan Sarandon in Atlantic City. Or you can go with my pick. I've got Isabelle Adjani for the film Possession. Good options all around. I think we've got a lot of different film styles in there. I think different subsections of people on social media are going to come out in different ways. I'm curious to see how that one's going to go.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
All right, Joey, let's jump over to Best Actor really quickly now. Your nominees and winner for 1981 were Paul Newman for Absence of Malice. You've got Dudley Moore for Arthur, Burt Lancaster for Atlantic City, Warren Beatty for Reds, and that year's winner was Henry Fonda for On Golden Pond. Now, before we get into this, we do have a question from a friend, Movie Archer, at Movie Archer, over on Instagram. And Movie Archer asked, which of the 5 acting nominees for Best Actor would you remove, if any, in favor of Harrison Ford? So let's see if either of our picks answers that question or not. We'll just kind of leave it there for a second. It's my turn to start on this category, so I'm going to jump in right away. My nominations for Best Actor in 1981 are, and before I get into this category is fucking stacked. This
Brutal.
is... We've talked about this
because of this.
This has caused great strain and stress for probably both of us trying to pick a winner here.
It's so stacked. It's so stacked. I could have done 3 separate Best Actor categories, I think.
Yes, I'm not happy with what I've left out, and we'll talk about plenty of cuts and everything here, but let's get into my picks. I've got John Travolta for the film Blowout, Brian De Palma's Blowout. Huge John Travolta fan. Love what he does there. I've got William Hurt for Body Heat. We'll talk Body Heat plenty more, I'm sure, but William Hurt is fantastic in everything he does, and Body Heat is right there at the top for him. I've got Sam Neill for Possession. He's right up there with Isabelle Adjani in that film. He does crazy stuff. I think Sam Neill's been an under-the-radar actor for a long time in his career. Everyone knows him for Jurassic Park, obviously, but I would recommend digging into some of his 80s catalog because it's weird, it's wild, it's crazy, and Possession's right up there for him. I've got Harrison Ford for Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's one of the most iconic characters ever put to screen. He has to be in the conversation for me. And then my 5th and final spot is going to go to James Caan for Thief. Michael Mann's debut film Thief is unbelievable. James Caan, what he does in that role is tremendous for me. I could give this to any of these 5 actors and have no problem today defending them, but I am going to make a tough pick. And I think that you can trace back the John Travolta renaissance to Blowout. Obviously, everybody knows more about what Quentin Tarantino did to revive his career in 1994 with Pulp Fiction, which we'll talk about in a couple of months with Joey and some friends of his. However, everyone now knows that Quentin Tarantino originally cast John Travolta in Pulp Fiction because of how much he loved Blowout. And I think Blowout is John Travolta's best acting performance of everything he's ever done. So my winner is going to go to John Travolta in Blowout.
That's a great win. I had never seen that, and then I remember you got the Criterion in one of your manic movie binges, and you showed me the cover, and the cover was awesome, really good, and I really like Travolta in it. Really interesting choices.
Yeah, it's one of those movies I think that lends itself to rewatches. The first time I saw it, I enjoyed it. Each time I watch it, I pick up a lot of nuance to it. Like you said, I've got the Criterion Blu-ray, which is fantastic. I recommend everyone check that out. Let's go over to you, Joseph Frederick R.
I don't know. I'm gonna have to get off this. This is getting embarrassing for you.
0 for 4. Man. Okay. 2 more chances. 2 more.
Joey Freddy. Like, what are my parents doing? What do you think? When you think
Parents don't know what the hell they're doing with middle names. We've got
never mind it.
we've got 2 more chances. Okay, Joey, who do you have
All right.
nominated and who do you have winning?
Okay. Burt Lancaster, Atlantic City. Harrison Ford, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Bruce Campbell, The Evil Dead. James Caan in Thief. And William Hurt in Body Heat. This was
Okay.
tough. Putting this together was tough. Even right here, as you were talking, I was like, "Oh man, how do I not have Sam Neill in here?" Oh shit. But stuck with what I did. But really tough. And I've really gone through 2, and Burt Lancaster and William Hurt have been my one for this. Pretty much, they were the only ones that were 100% locked in through the whole time.
Wow.
And I have a really long list. But I ended up going with William Hurt in Body Heat.
Oh, I love that.
Man, I think, again, that movie, you feel that movie. Kathleen Turner was great. Everybody was great in that. But man, he was really pitch perfect. He really was just fully in on it. I believed everything he did, and I wanted more. That movie could have been 20 more minutes, and as long as it was him in it, I'm in. I loved it. I had never seen that movie, and again, like I said, I want to watch it once a week for the rest of my life. He was great.
That was a first time watch, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
And really just so yeah, William Hurt in Body Heat, but Burt Lancaster, I don't want to take away from him. And I really wanted to give it to him, but I just think I went Hurt. But Burt Lancaster, I really came in and did a lot of different things, and the way he moved, especially early on when he was with the he's the caretaker, he's still the numbers guy. Like, he was so many different things, and he did them all very well and very subtly. And then as it kind of moved in, and as kind of the stakes of the movie heightened, he always felt like he was just with it in such the right way and guiding everything, where I was just really impressed.
Yeah, and maybe you can lend this. I don't know if I've seen enough of Burt Lancaster. I've seen several of his roles that are prominent, but I don't know if I've seen enough of his roles to say that I've ever seen him do something like he does in Atlantic City. It felt different to me than the other characters he's played in some of the movies that come to mind. So I agree with you. I think what he does in Atlantic City is really cool, really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, because I think what does everybody know him from, right? Field of Dreams,
Right.
Everybody knows him from Here to Eternity, and but we right, he's in Island of Dr. Moreau, and there was a movie last year on 1001 we covered The Leopard, and he really was the best part of that.
So good in The Leopard.
So good in The Leopard, and it's a movie I don't love, but he was really great in it. So I think he's just someone who takes kind of wherever he's in, he makes the most out of it, and he does different, very unique things. Like, I think he's a really talented actor, and I think, I don't know, I feel like he doesn't get talked about enough anymore, and that's kind of a bummer because, like right now as we're talking, I'm scrolling through his IMDb, and I'm like, oh man, like Birdman of Alcatraz, really good in Birdman of Alcatraz. Kind of a weird movie, but he's great in it, and that's kind of the answer to all of these that I've seen, where it's just like, oh yeah, oh shit, oh yeah, oh god, he's good. yes. And
I think you've done a very good job of selling Atlantic City already. If somebody's listening right now and they haven't seen it, you got to check that movie out. It is totally not what I expected it to be in the best possible way.
And do not because I think IMDb does a very bad job of explaining it. Like the synopsis it sounds stupid. It's
right.
it sounds stupid, and it's this really great nuanced movie where a lot of things happen in very smart ways, and I think it's paced really well. Like, it's just, I really, really love that movie.
Yeah, even the poster doesn't do it justice. It doesn't give you
nothing about it until you watch the movie. Nothing does it justice. Like,
and it hooks you almost instantly. I mean, right away you're kind of in it,
And they do a really good job because, especially setting up Burt Lancaster's character, where it's just like, is he this big guy or is he not? So right away, there's just so much things going on, and even when what's the guy's name? Robert Joy, right? Like another, I think he did a really good job for the minutes he was in this movie as just kind of this like ultimate opportunist who's too dumb to be an opportunist. But I think those scenes were where you saw Burt Lancaster just really just bringing it to another level of just like like just eating it.
Now, I think we need to address the elephant in the room here because I can already feel some of the people online coming at us for not mentioning Harrison Ford as a winner. I feel like a lot of people expect Harrison Ford to have won because of the popularity of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Do you feel any pressure to have not picked him? Because I personally don't. I think
No, I'm
he's
a
great
fucking
in
grown up. I don't feel pressure because shut up.
he's great in Raiders, but I mean, like, come
Awesome,
on,
iconic character. The
yes,
guy's an icon. But you know, listen, there's revisions of this where my fifth, if Sam Neill was here, he's the one coming out.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a few close on the bubbles. Kurt Russell in Escape from New York is kind of like a close to my heart pick. Mel Gibson's got a couple of great roles this year. We haven't really touched too much of that. Warren Beatty in Reds, I think,
Yeah,
is very
he was
solid.
David Naughton, American Werewolf in London. He was
Yep.
someone, and people might roll their Wallace Shawn in My Dinner with Andre. I wanted in here so bad. I almost made this a 6-person category. I don't think maybe whether he's one of the top 5, I don't know, but I loved what he did with it. Like personally, I just really enjoyed it, and that was it's like a weird movie.
I'm glad
But
you enjoyed it. I couldn't get into it.
And I get it, and I don't really know. I think I just I literally watched it one night, like very late, and I was just
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, like I was in it. Bruce Campbell for The Evil Dead was one that I was very locked in. I'm very happy I put it in because is The Evil Dead an awards movie? Absolutely not. But Bruce Campbell absolutely went out there. He busted his ass with Sam Raimi, made this work, made the whole movie work, and you know what? And the guy's directing the sixth one coming out, and he just produced the last one. Like he's involved, and Harrison Ford, iconic as in Raiders, but you know what? Bruce Campbell is iconic in Evil Dead, and I think that deserves shouting out as well.
Yeah, I have no problem giving Karen Allen a win and not Harrison Ford because I
Same.
think Raiders there's bigger pieces in Raiders that make that movie more than just Harrison Ford acting. Obviously, like as a screen presence, he is what he
Oh,
is. But
untouched. I mean, he's a charisma machine.
exactly. But yeah, I don't feel guilty not having him as my
No, and
winner.
I think it's a very deserved nomination. Like I think
Yes.
it's a super deserved, very appropriate nomination. I have no qualms with that.
Now you also did not include Henry Fonda in your nominations, nor did I. What do you think about Henry Fonda on Golden Pond?
Henry Fonda is a great actor. I don't think Henry Fonda in On Golden Pond is it. Maybe that's a for me
No.
thing, but no. And that was not a tough cut. That was
I'm
not a
looking
tough
at my
cut.
list. I mean, it's way down there for me. It's just
And I had to
yeah.
pull. Britt's hatred of Paul Newman made me really want to put him in because I love Paul Newman, but I don't think Absence of Malice is the Paul Newman one. I'm ready to dig my heels into him. As wonderful as he is, I just didn't. I think he's real good in it. I just
Yep.
the whole thing isn't great. Where I just didn't feel like it was worthy of anything.
I thought you were going to put Paul Newman in there because I know that you borderline revere him, which there's nothing
Yes, I
wrong with
do.
because Paul Newman's the shit. There's no reason not to love him. But I was also kind of like trying to push him a little bit
Me
into the
too.
win. But the movie's not. It's not a good movie.
Yeah,
It's
and you know what like if it was a thinner year at all, like I definitely could have worked it in, but
mm-hmm.
but realistically, probably Sam Neill in Possession, and probably I want to say Wallace Shawn, but probably it's really then Warren Beatty after that before getting to Paul Newman. But again, I always love Paul Newman, and I will never pick him over Meatloaf. Brit.
I need a shirt one of these days. You guys
We
need to
need
get
it.
on the merch. Yeah.
That's gonna be our first merch.
Okay, so to the fan vote, you will have 3 options when we get to it. You can either go with who the Academy picked that year, which is Henry Fonda for On Golden Pond. You can go with my pick, which was John Travolta for Blowout, or you can go with Joey's pick, who has William Hurt in Body Heat. I think all 3 of those actors have a strong movie-going fan base, and that should be a pretty close, contentious battle, I would expect.
I would think so.
All right. Now, Joey, before we jump into director and picture, we're going to take a quick second and we're going to turn to our honorary awards handed out each episode. We've got the Grace Kelly Award and the John C. Reilly Awards. For anyone who's listening who doesn't know from previous episodes, these are given out to the actress and actor who have had the best overall body of work in a given year, even if they didn't necessarily have the single best performance. So it's for people who tend to do multiple films in a year. 1981 sucked for these two awards. I struggled very hard to find even people who did two films. I don't know if you... There just were not a lot of choices.
Too many people were in 7-hour sit down and have tea movies.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, literally every other episode we've done, 1954, 2011, and 2010, you had several actors doing several projects, both male and female. So it was pretty easy to pick some winners there. But I did find a couple of winners, so I will recognize them. We're going to start with the Grace Kelly Award. I'm going to go with Jamie Lee Curtis. She was honestly the only actress I could find who did two movies in 1981, so she kind of wins by default. But she was in 1981's Australian thriller Road Games, which is something I would recommend checking out if you're into kind of some weird road thriller movie. It's not really a horror movie. I don't know. You don't seem too impressed by Road Games, but
No
it's a strange movie. And then she was obviously in the maligned Halloween 2. I don't think Halloween 2 is a very good sequel to it, but she does more in Halloween 2 she's on screen more in that movie than she is in the first one. She's
not the complaint with Halloween 2.
Exactly.
She's not the issue with Halloween 2.
Yeah, so I have
Halloween
no problem.
2 stinks, but she's not the problem of it.
Yeah, yes, there's a lot of issues with it. But
yeah,
Jamie Lee Curtis is great, so I'm happy to give her the Grace Kelly Award. On the John C. Reilly Award, the guy is going to go to Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson in 1981 was in Mad Max 2: The Road Warrior, which, again, iconic performance. You can quibble on semantics.
We haven't spoken about that either, which is funny. But yeah, I mean, I guess it could still come up in one place. But yeah, that's a huge movie, and I think it's. Yes. I like Mad Max 2 better than Mad Max 1.
Oh, easily. I don't even recognize Mad Max 1 all that much. I mean, it's sort of like a proof of concept. You know, it sort of feels like half a movie.
2's great though.
Yes, 2's great. And then he was also in Gallipoli, which I wasn't expecting to like that as much as I did. That was another first time watch, and I think he was good in it.
Gallipoli is a very fine movie.
Yes.
Like there's nothing to hate about it. Like it's good. Everybody did what they did. I think that's something where it's just I think it was just a little thin ultimately, where I think just a little bit of body to it. I think that's a bigger, more remembered movie.
Yeah, the main reason I probably walked away enjoying it was because I watched it the same day as Chariots of Fire in the immediacy after it. And so it was like, of course it's better than Chariots of Fire.
Man, yeah, I mean, that's not fair. I mean, because what? All right, so you 4 of these episodes, you've now power ranked the Best Picture winner last twice. You did it with Chariots of Fire, which I'm actually fine with, but your egregious Shakespeare in Love nonsense. So if you had to watch one now,
between Shakespeare in Love and Chariots, Shakespeare.
Okay, so
like
are you going to take back some of that egregiousness from that episode? You were in like the hyperbole ship there.
Yeah, it was. I was probably pushing a button or two, but
for sure, which I appreciate. I've never done that, but you know,
never. Yeah,
me.
You can't find any tape on that. Right.
Yeah, I'm on recording doing that for hundreds of hours.
Yeah, Shakespeare in Love is a good movie. Chariots of Fire is a depressingly, almost unwatchable movie in terms of, like, again, an entertainment value. It's awful. It's awful. And, you know, I'm not trying to get you to just destroy it, because obviously I know you guys over at Best Picture Cast, you do a good
rank them.
I know, but you guys do a good job of celebrating Best Picture winners, because they all have a place in the world, you know? Right. So I'm not trying to put you on an edge to totally shit on Chariots of Fire, but it's not a good movie.
No, it's tough.
Okay, so
67 in. It's my number 67.
I don't see it going anywhere any higher anytime soon. I don't know what you
I'd be
guys have up.
surprised.
Yeah, it's going to be at the bottom. So congratulations to Jamie Lee Curtis and Mel Gibson going into the honorary awards category. Let's jump over to Best Director. So 1981's Best Director nominees were Louis Malle for Atlantic City, Hugh Hudson for Chariots of Fire, Mark Rydell for On Golden Pond, Steven Spielberg for Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Warren Beatty, who won that year for Reds. Joey, Ralph, Rogate III.
Juror is incorrect.
One more chance. We're going to get it.
I hope your sixth guess is less embarrassing than this.
they keep getting worse. They really do.
Director was interesting, and I think director's where I went the most awards focused on, like what's an awards movie, because Sam Raimi, John Landis, Michael Mann were all really high for me, but I think there's enough where they were all my toughest cuts. I would have loved to, but it just didn't feel. It felt like too much of a reach for what to be. Because I want to stay earnest with what we're doing as well. Where at some point, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with doing it. Just at some point, I want to stay earnest with it. So here's mine: Warren Beatty, Reds; Andrzej Zulawski, Possession; Steven Spielberg, Raiders of the Lost Ark; Lawrence Kasdan, Body Heat; and Louis Malle, Atlantic City. I think this is really tough. I
don't know where you're going to go with this.
Yeah, at different times, 4 of these were. And I'm going to tell you, I'm surprised here, but I went with Warren Beatty for Reds.
Wow. Okay.
I think he directed the shit out of that movie. I was really impressed. I'm thinking about it and so much. I think he was so good. Like Mal and Kasdan, I think we're right there, but really Warren Beatty, I think, knocked it out of the park with Reds, and really, I think I give a lot of directing credit to that movie.
Yeah, and I feel like this is just kind of me in general. I don't know if you agree with me, but I tend to want to give more credit to directors who also star in their films. That's a hard thing to pull off, and I think Beatty does a very good job of being both a good actor and a good director in Reds.
100%. Yeah, and like I didn't nominate him, I know, but he was a tough cut for me in the actor, and I think he did a good job on the acting, but I really think the directing knocked it out of the park. And this was a big cast. This wasn't like a small cast of nobodies. Like there were big powerhouse names in this. This was a serious story they're telling. It was big. It was long. And I think he didn't miss.
I'm glad you got Mal in there because we've mentioned he actually did 2 films in this year. He did both Atlantic City and my Dinner with Andre, which are starkly different from one another.
Weird year for him, but
yes, yeah.
I love what he did, and they're so different. I mean, Atlantic City is objectively better, but I enjoyed My Dinner with Andre, and and I just two very separate movies to 2 very different things, and I really think he did a great job with both.
I thought you were going to go Kasdan for Body Heat because you'd been kind of teeing off Body Heat, getting closer and closer.
It wasn't not in the running, Acorn.
Okay, well, let's jump over to me really quickly, and then we'll dive into some more of this. So here are my nominations and my Best Director winner for 81. I went with Brian De Palma for Blowout. I think that Blowout is entirely dependent on his ability to direct that movie and play with the sound design and everything that's happening there. So I think De Palma has to be in there for me. I went with George Miller for Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior.
There it is. I figured.
Yes. I mean, is there a little bit of Fury Road playing with my head because of how much I love that? Probably. But like that movie doesn't work without George Miller pulling off all the insane shit that he does with the stunts and everything.
Yeah, that's him. That's just his vision.
Exactly. So I had to give Miller some love there. I also have Andrzej Zulawski for Possession. That movie it's like an acid. That's the closest thing I can think there is to an acid trip on camera. I mean, that movie it's demented. It's hard to process, and that's all down to his directing. It's designed to be chaotic and make you, the viewer, feel like you're losing your mind with the two lead characters. So I had to get him in there. I'm glad you did too. I was hoping you would. I also have Steven. Yeah, I mean he's got to be in there, right?
Yeah, I think that's a hard pull. He's so good. I think again, I think that's a movie that with the wrong director, it's either too subtle or too out of control. Like it's out of control. It is an acid trip, but it lives within its world and
Yes.
it follows its rules and it follows the right foot does what it's supposed to do after the left foot, where I think it could have easily gone so haywire the movie doesn't even get like finished.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think he has to be in this consideration with all these other directors. I do have Steven Spielberg as well for Raiders of the Lost Ark. Spielberg is Spielberg. He's GOAT status in my opinion. And then I also have David Cronenberg for Scanners. It's not my favorite Cronenberg film. I could probably think of two or three others that I find superior, but I think from a directing standpoint, especially in that period in time, he knocks it out of he knocks it out of the park from directing skill level. So I had to get Cronenberg in there.
I think that's reasonable, and I should have mentioned him one of my toughest cuts because he was in the Sam Raimi, John Landis, Michael Mann, and he was right in there with those guys, like the future tastemakers, if you will.
Yes, and I just want to say before I name my winner, I apologize to the Academy in 1981, but your lineup sucks. I mean, it downright sucks. Hugh Hudson, Mark Rydell, get the hell out of here with those guys. I mean, those are not
Silly.
like directors with any caliber or pedigree, in my opinion. And I think that 81 signaled a movement, and we both mentioned them, but I mean, we're talking, Sam Raimi, Terry Gilliam, John Carpenter, Michael Mann, John Landis, Cronenberg, on and on and on. There's all these heavyweights that become, sort of defining 80s films over the next 10 years, and they all got to start right around this period of time.
Yeah, he's like, look at these. I mean, Raimi still doing stuff. Michael Mann just had Ferrari come out. Cronenberg's kids, I mean, his daughter's coming out with something. His son's doing a different type of, experimental horror types. Like they're just people who've been around from this time doing so much that it's really, unbelievable. And then Spielberg, who just at no point has stopped and is just
right,
unbelievable.
Yeah.
All time.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, though, this was probably the one that I had locked in the earliest. There's not a whole lot of a gray area for me on this one. I think Spielberg wins hands down for me. I've seen some weird people online. I'm not going to name them yet, but people are attacking Raiders of the Lost Ark for being overrated. I don't understand that. I think Raiders of the Lost Ark is one of the greatest movies ever put to film. I don't even know how that's a debate at this point. It's like action adventure perfection, and Spielberg changed filmmaking to a large degree, and I think he has to be recognized for this work.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest Indiana Jones guy. It's not even my favorite Indiana Jones movie, but
you a Last Crusade guy?
I am a Last Crusade guy.
Hard to argue with that.
Yeah. But yeah, listen, I think what makes what you do here, what we do at 1001 and Best Picture cast, what makes it interesting is that everything has somebody who does or does not like it, right?
Yes.
Like, there's so many things where it's like, yeah, this might be someone's favorite movie. Like that's wild. And if everybody agreed, this would all be really uninteresting.
For sure, yes. So
no, there's some egregious takes. I'm not saying that, but when it's in good faith, and I think like a good faith disagreement is great.
Yes, and I feel like at this point in time, some of the Indiana Jones franchise has the last two movies downright were not good movies.
The Dial of Destiny was tough.
It's bad.
As I sit with that more, it's just it just goes down and down and down.
It makes Crystal Skull actually look kind of okay.
Oh, I think it's better than Crystal Skull.
Okay. I think I prefer Crystal Skull because at least it's got Spielberg still kind of at the helm.
Most people probably do it. It doesn't have the aging nonsense, but I think it's just tough.
They're both bad, and they've diluted the brand to a degree where I can separate Raiders just like I can separate like the Star Wars the original trilogy from all the crap that's come since or whatever. So for me, Raiders kind of acts in a bubble.
Yeah, but thank God for Last Jedi.
We're not doing that again.
Star Wars movie. We're the second best Star Wars movie. It's wonderful.
Oh my God. Okay. All right. So let's really quickly. We've got some more questions specific to this category. Tom Duncan back again. Let's see if Tom can redeem himself. Tom asked, in general, was Warren Beatty a good director? I thought that was an interesting question because he's up for best director and wins this year, and then you obviously gave him the win too. So, Joey, do you think that Warren Beatty is a good director or not? I would assume so, since you have him winning it.
Yeah, I just gave it to him, and I think he was such a really surprise director for me here. And I think Dick Tracy was something I loved as a kid.
I'll still stand for Dick Tracy. I think it's a fun movie.
I haven't seen it, so I can't say, but I loved it as a kid. I had a bunch of the toys from it. I think Bulworth is great. Heaven Can Wait. But yeah, I think he has 3 really well-directed movies out of like 5 that he directed, and the others aren't bad. They're just either have or have not seen it.
Yeah, it's weird that he's only done. I hadn't really been too familiar with like what he had or hadn't done, and I didn't realize
know
that
he did Bulworth until I just looked at it.
I even forgot he did Dick Tracy. I mean, I probably shouldn't have forgotten that, but like I just remember him obviously in front of the camera. But like only 5 films over a career of 50 years or whatever is kind of weird.
5. They're good, and he clearly picks his spots, right? He's not just doing nonsense.
And at the end of the day, I feel like I respect Reds more than I necessarily love it. I think Reds is a very good film, but I think that the messaging behind it, especially for the time period it came out, like what it was talking about with like American socialism and communism and that whole thing was really really hard for a lot of people to grasp in 1981. I appreciate that Warren Beatty like tackled something. Yeah, absolutely. So I think he's a good director.
Absolutely. I listen, just from Reds, Bulworth, Dick Tracy. Yeah, he's a good director.
Yeah, even Heaven Can Wait's a good movie. I'm not gonna slam Heaven Can Wait.
I don't know that's the most directed movie ever, but like I think it's good.
Yes. So Tom, I think the answer is that you have failed again.
Keep trying, bro.
Okay, so you're only going to have 2 options here. Both options, incredible. I think this is going to be a pretty strong matchup. I do like my odds, though, and we'll see how it goes. You can either go with Joey and the Academy, who both sided with Warren Beatty and Reds, or you can go with my pick, which is Steven Spielberg and Raiders of the Lost Ark. So we'll see how that best director goes.
I don't pick for the votes. I pick for the honesty.
Which is perfectly acceptable.
So vote for me because I pick with my heart, my brain.
All right, Joey, let's jump over to the granddaddy. And most importantly, let's see if I can finally get your middle name. We'll find out. All right. So the actual nominees for 1981 Best Picture were, you have Atlantic City, On Golden Pond, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Reds, and taking the grand prize was Chariots of Fire, a name that sounds far cooler than the movie actually has any right to be. Okay, before we get to our revised nominations and the winner pick, our friend Chauncey over on Twitter sent us a question. You can find Chauncey
Talese?
Yeah, you can find Chauncey using the handle @BigChaunce64, and he asked, if they did the Oscars over again, does Reds win Best Picture or does Raiders? We won't answer that yet. We'll get back to you, Chauncey, because this is all going to lead into it. We also got a question again from Movie Archer @MovieArcher over on Instagram, who asked, Raiders of the Lost Ark was the biggest movie of 1981, but was it also the best? Again, we'll answer that here in a moment. And finally, Joey, your friend and ours, Adam St. John, over at 1001 by 1, that son of a bitch, he said, is Raiders of the Lost Ark the most overrated film of all time? So this is the perfect segue. Let's find out. I'm going to start things off in this final category. Because this is a year where there were only 5 nominations allowed in the actual ceremony, I'm going to adhere to those rules. I'm only going to nominate 5. I figured you would as well. Okay, here's my 5 nominations for Best Picture 1981. First up is going to be the first time I actually mentioned this film, but it's An American Werewolf in London. I think that the movie is better than the sum of its parts. All the acting's good and everything about it's very strong. But when the whole movie comes together, I think it's one of the most revolutionary horror films of the 80s. All the practical effects. Yes. I mean, it holds up to this day. I go back to it all the time. I don't know about you, but Love
Oh yeah, I
American
love it.
Werewolf. Yes. So
Love it.
for me, it's one of the 5 best films of 1981. All these years later, I've also got Blowout, Brian De Palma's film. I think it captures the paranoia of the '80s in a particular way, and I'm always fascinated by that movie, so I had to put that in there. I also have Mad Max 2: The Road Warrior. Again, much like American Werewolf, I think that the innovation that George Miller brought to Mad Max 2, the way he did all the stunt work and everything, has to be recognized by me. My 4th movie for Best Picture nomination is Possession. The movie is it's it's the craziest movie I've ever seen in my life, and I think it deserves a spot up there just for how
But it's also
audacious it
so
is.
well made.
It
It's all,
is.
it's like crafted well. It's not just crazy for crazy's sake.
Correct. The camera work is
Yep.
really fantastic. The acting, everything about that movie checks all the boxes for me. And then 5th and final pick for Best Picture is Raiders of the Lost Ark. This is a simple winner for me. Sorry, Adam St. John. To me, Raiders of the Lost Ark, it's not overrated. I think it should have won Best Picture in 1981. It was obviously up for it. I think all these years later, you can look back and say that that was one of the moments that Steven Spielberg arrived. Obviously, he had already done Jaws prior and Close Encounters, but I think Raiders was the moment he hit the big time in terms of like he became Steven Spielberg that we still now know and talk about. For me, Raiders changed the game in the genre, everything about it. It's my Best Picture winner.
It's a great win.
Joey, for the final time, Joseph, Leslie, Nielsen, Rogate.
Leslie?
Leslie?
You said Leslie?
Leslie?
You said my name is Joseph Leslie Rogate. Is that what your guess?
I said Joseph, Leslie, Nielsen, Rogate.
I appreciate that you have been following the Best Picture Cast comedy tournament so closely that you made this horrific guess based off the Airplane winner. No, my middle name is not Leslie, but I appreciate the shout out.
Well, congratulations, Airplane. Well-deserving winner of the comedy tournament.
Leslie?
I went
really
for
bottom
it.
of the barreling it here, huh?
I know, I went for it. Okay, so Joey, who did you decide to give your Best Picture nominations and the win to?
All right. My nominations are Reds, Atlantic City, An American Werewolf in London, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Possession.
Okay, some similarities there between the two of us.
Yeah, and I had a tough time, but ultimately, I went with Reds.
Ooh, okay.
I think Reds is a really great movie. I think it's would be a really great Best Picture winner. I think any of these would have been. Well, American Werewolf London is far off, but what they did is otherworldly. But really, I think Reds, Atlantic City, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Possession, like I think they're all worthy winners and would be, Best Picture Cast. Like we were going for a full ranking of everything, and I think there are movies that would have been in contention, like in the higher end of things. And but ultimately, I settled on Reds, and it was tough. But I just really love what everyone did in that movie. I really love what the movie said. I think just it all really worked very well.
I'm curious. So I've kind of like held off talking about this portion of Reds too much because I didn't want to like tip my hand or anything. The one part of the movie that kept drawing me out, and I know it was like an intentional decision by Warren Beatty, but all of the like interviews with the people after the fact,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't gel with
Oh,
that.
really?
Yeah,
I
it
thought that
did.
was really,
Okay, I
really
figured you liked
interesting,
it.
and it actually because it's a very long movie, so you have to justify runtime, and which is fine. I don't care how long a movie is as long as it fits, right? Like I've said on record, I think Seven Samurai needs to be 7 minutes longer. But I think that those interviews really helped like break up the story in an interesting way where it kept you engaged. I always wanted more, but reminding you it was there. I think it really worked really well, and I think it was a great choice. But
Yeah,
if it
I
doesn't
can
work, that
understand
movie's
that.
not going to work. Yeah,
It felt a little too like chapter based or serialized
I
because
get
of
you.
the nature of it, and I figured it would go one way or the other.
And I think that's what it is. I think, like kind of a lot of movies like this where it's like, all right, there's that one thing, right? Like I feel like we've talked about it a lot where if this thing doesn't work, and that's the thing, but wow, it really worked for me. And I really, really thought it was interesting. And I think it was such a cool choice. And I think it's something that only could work with this sort of subject matter, right? Like I think if it was, like if you put that into Raiders of the Lost Ark, like it doesn't work. It makes no sense. And
Right.
it's just to do something. But I think it really worked here. And I think it was well executed.
Now I'm gonna guess, just based on kind of what we've already talked about in the past 5 categories, right on the bubble for you, probably Body Heat. A little surprised it didn't make it into the top 5.
It was tough. It's just I didn't know what to take out.
Yeah.
That was the problem. Like, maybe that gets in over American Werewolf. But I just think the way American Werewolf told the story, I think it's way it used the makeup and the transitions and everything. It's an iconic movie for a reason.
Yeah, Body
It's
Heat
such
was
an overused. It's such a stupid overused word, but it is iconic.
100%. I mean, like we both said, the practical effects on American Werewolf hold up. The movie's funny. It's scary. It's weird.
Everything you want.
Yes, it's great.
It's everything you want from a movie. And I mean, I nominated 2 of the actors in supporting. Like, I really, really love it. I wanted Landis in director. It's just, but, and I'm going to tell you, Acorn, Atlantic City was close to winning this.
Oh wow, okay. So you're like head over heels with that thing.
Yeah, it's crazy, but I think it's great, and it was close. I think they both got rewatches. I actually all these 5 got rewatches this week. I had texted you over the weekend or something, and I said, "Hey, send me what you did. Make sure there was that, because I wanted to make sure we, I matched your list, so I wanted to make sure we saw the same stuff." But so I was like, all right, good. So we're all caught up there. So let me, so I rewatched these, because, I didn't, which, because I've seen Raiders of the Lost Ark 40 times in my life.
Right.
And, Possession 3 and American Werewolf a lot, but then, Reds in Atlantic City once. So I was like, let me give everything a clean. And really, when I saw Atlantic City, and I was like, you know what? And it was like Tuesday night. I was like, that's going to take it. And last night, Reds. I was like, you know what? I can't. It's just, it works. It works so well. I think it would be a really good Oscar winner.
Did you find the runtime on Reds to be a problem on rewatch at all? Like seeing it kind of 2 times in relative proximity?
No. Also, I mean, I didn't really like tight. I've done, started doing this a couple months ago. Like this wasn't like a rush job or anything. So probably Reds was
early on the prep
6
side.
weeks ago. Yeah, like so it wasn't like super recent. I think the runtime was easier the second time when I kind of knew what
you knew the story beats.
Like I think it flew a little bit more. Where the first time, like getting into the interviews, kind of it worked for me, but it was a little. Because like you said, it's a little chaptery a little bit, so it just took a second to hop in. The second time it flew through.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have an issue with Reds winning at all. It wasn't too far down my list when I really thought about it, and I was trying to. There's a fine balance this year between like how weird did I want to get with, like, a lot of the good movies from 1981 are bonkers, weird, wild, crazy. And it's like there was a fine balance to getting the ones that I thought were deserving of action. Like if these movies were made in 2024, could any of these be in contention for, like, is Possession the Hereditary of the 1980s, where it's like it's so good in its genre that it kind of could be considered an award caliber film? To me, yes. Like is American Werewolf strong enough to be in the conversation? Yes. Evil Dead was not quite there for me. I think it's a little too.
If it was Evil Dead 2.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. But it's a little too rough around the edges for me to be way up there.
Yeah, no, for sure. Thief was another one where it was just a little too, probably just too harsh for this.
I thought you were going to have Thief really going strong on this episode, because we had talked off air about this plenty, and I know you're a big Thief fan, and so I thought it was going to do some big things for you. So I guess I'm a little surprised in hindsight that Thief didn't win anything for you.
I think the Reds Atlantic City really stole a lot of its thunder. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, I mean,
Body Heat was goddamn good.
Body Heat is so good. It is so good, and Lawrence Kasdan does not get enough recognition for his work writing, directing. I think he's a fantastic person. Another movie we didn't really talk about at all. I wanted to like it more, and I feel like the first time I saw it, I liked it more. Prince of the City was just
I struggle getting through it.
God.
I
It was
did not
same
have a good
here.
time.
Yeah, it was just a mess. There's so many better movies over the last X number of years that handle that kind of like procedural crime stuff in a better way. So couldn't get around to that one the way I thought I was going to. All right, so at the end of the day, when Best Picture comes around on social media, you'll have three options. You can go with the Academy if you're insane and pick Chariots of Fire. I don't think you're going to have much chance, so waste your votes there if you want to. Or you can go with my pick, Raiders of the Lost Ark, or Joey's pick, which is Reds. I think both Raiders of the Lost Ark and Reds deserve a chance to win, and I hope both of them kick the hell out of Chariots of Fire.
I have a feeling Raiders is going to pretty handily win there.
Yeah, I think it will, and
Which is fine.
Again,
It's deserved. It's deserved.
it's a heart pick and it's a head pick for me, so I'm happy I gave it its love. Okay,
It's completely appropriate.
absolutely. Now, Joey, before we wrap up everything, I do want to
We
jump
have like
over
30 more questions, right?
tons of lingering questions. We'll try to get through these as fast as we can. Tom, I
Let's go.
apologize for Tom's 8 questions he has coming our way. We'll take them in stride.
We'll answer the good ones.
Yes. Okay. All right. First up, friend of the show, Seth Vargas over at Movie Friends at Movie Friends Pod. He specifically wanted to know just a general thought on the 80s. And if this is too side questy, feel free to dismiss. Seth, I'm always happy to go down a side quest. Joey, I know, is happy to take an avenue down somewhere too.
Where I live. What are we talking about?
Okay. So Seth's question is, who ruled the 80s? John Hughes, question mark. Steven Spielberg, question mark. Who, question mark. It's kind of a question to take in. If you didn't see this question beforehand,
I didn't.
Okay,
Just give me a second. Well, talk it through, and I'll give an answer.
Okay, so I'll let you sit with it for a second. I wish Seth, I appreciate your question. I wish you wouldn't have given me a couple answers because I feel like my attention was already steered towards those two people now, and it's kind of hard for me to think of anyone else in the 80s that did as much as Spielberg and John Hughes, because I think if I didn't have those people leading me in that direction, I probably would have gone that way anyway.
Yeah.
Like both John Hughes and Steven Spielberg have done so much.
Right. They're icons of the 80s. Like that's appropriate.
So I think Seth picked the right two people. So I'm just kind of thinking if I had to pick one or the other. And so I looked at it a little bit. And if you look at Spielberg, obviously he's got all the directing stuff. So he's got Raiders, E.T., Temple of Doom, Color Purple, Last Crusade, strong body of work for him on the directing side. But then the whole other side of Steven Spielberg in the 80s is everything he did with Amblin production. I mean, you've got Poltergeist, Gremlins, Goonies, Money Pit, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Back to the Future Part 2 is even part of Amblin. So like Spielberg became bigger in Hollywood than just a director. So it's hard to like quantify his influence. But on the flip side, John Hughes had, he did writing and directing. So he's got Mr. Mom, National Lampoon's Vacation, 16 Candles, Breakfast Club, Weird Science, Pretty in Pink, Ferris Bueller, Planes, Trains, Automobiles, on and on and on. So I kind of want to go John Hughes. I feel like when I think of the 80s, I think Hughes. When I think of Spielberg, I think of multiple decades, if that makes sense.
For sure. So my head, as we were talking, so Spielberg and John Hughes, obviously. And then Rob Reiner, Robert Zemeckis, John Carpenter. Like, I think it's those guys, right?
Yeah, Reiner's a good one. That's a really good... Because, I mean, he goes all the way back to 81 and Spinal Tap, or 1980, and,
84 Spinal Tap.
84, okay. Yeah, so he's got a good chunk of the 80s where he's cranking
great stuff
out.
In the 80s. Zemeckis has Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Back to the Future.
Right.
Carpenter just is nuts in the 80s.
Yes. Yeah,
in the best way possible.
What's he have? He has Halloween.
Escape.
In the Mouth of Madness.
Big Trouble in Little China.
Uh-huh.
They live.
Yeah. Yeah, and those all feel very 80s. Like there's an aesthetic to them about it. Yeah.
And then I think the answer is probably Hughes or Spielberg, but I think Reiner, Zemeckis, and Carpenter.
I like those answers.
Yeah. Need
I'm
shout
gonna,
outs.
yeah, I'm gonna to answer Seth's question kind of directly. I'll go with John Hughes because, like I said, when I think of Hughes, I think of '80s. When I think of Spielberg, I think of totality of work.
Right. Yeah,
You
that's
know, like
valid. I think that's an
so.
appropriate answer.
So I'll go with that. So Seth, thank you for sending that over. We appreciate it. Jumping over to the next question from Daniel Edwards at Dan Loves Film over on Instagram. Dan asked, "Do you think the head explosion scene from Scanners has ever been matched to this day?"
That is a fantastic scene. Has it been matched? I mean, probably yes.
Right.
The answer is yes. But that doesn't take away from how great that scene is,
It
and
still
how
looks really good to this day.
it does. And there's people who slow mo it to watch it, and like,
Right.
there's YouTube videos of just that in super slow mo, and it's fantastic. Cronenberg's a goddamn madman. And I think that's an all-time scene. Has it been done better at this point? Yes. Does that take away from its greatness? No. And probably all the people who are doing that better now are running around talking about how Scanners influenced them.
Oh, 100%. Yes. I mean, just by the nature of technology, things are going to look better. But I think that what Cronenberg did with body horror and all of the stuff, especially in Scanners, even if you look at the films by his son, I mean, what Brandon's doing with Possessor and Infinity Pool, I mean, he's kind of starting to push boundaries with what you can see on film quite a bit. So I would agree that I think it's inevitably been improved upon, but there's a direct lineage back to the influence of that explosion scene, which is iconic in the genre.
And even because that's a very visceral scene, but then 2 years later you have Videodrome, and I
Right.
think the chess scene I think is better.
Yeah, I think so. That's a good point.
And it's more creative. So I think, when 2 years later Cronenberg's kind of upping himself.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, considering where Cronenberg was at with his stage in his career, it's a hell of an achievement for what he did.
it's unbelievable.
And that scene is like, I think it's got to be one of the most rewatched scenes in film history. Everyone like had a DVD watching or a VHS back in the day watching that thing. So
yeah, it's a great scene. Very good movie.
All right, let's jump over. We're going to do rapid fire. Tom over at Gmote. Tom, thanks for the questions. Keep them coming.
What's your favorite Milwaukee movie from 1981?
Okay, this one's a pretty easy yes or no, I would say. And Tom's question is Chariots of Fire a sports movie? Yes or no?
Didn't he ask this about Moneyball last episode?
He did.
Really thinking outside the box, Tom. Yeah, it's a sports movie.
Yes, it's a sports movie. It's not a good one,
but it's a sports movie.
Running sucks. Running is stupid. I'm not a runner. I'll do a lot of other things for physical exertion. I'm not going to run. So, can you name a good running movie? I don't know if I can.
Prefontaine.
Okay, I'll give it to you on that one. Okay. All right. Next question from Tom. I like this question quite a bit more. So, Tom, steer more in this direction going forward. What was the one completely out of the box nominee in any category that didn't ultimately make your final cut? Is there anything that like is just wild or weird that you wanted to get in that you couldn't?
I think we talked about that a little bit. I think of the ones we haven't talked about, because I think we talked a lot about really wanting to get some things in. Really, I think it would be. I would have liked to figure out Escape from New York getting in somewhere beyond what I've talked about already. I think we talked about that a lot with this, and I think that's kind of the story of 81, kind of more outside the box, creative, trendsetters versus what it is. But I think Escape from New York getting in somewhere would be funny.
The one that I tried to get in just because of the sheer outlandishness of the performance and the character, I almost wanted to get Ronald Lacey from Raiders of the Lost Ark, who plays the villain Tote. That character,
okay, that's fine.
It's like it's over the top. It's a really strange supporting actor performance, and the supporting actor category. There was a couple of spots I could have maybe snuck it in. So
sure,
that was the one that came to mind.
He's a good foil.
He is, yes. So I like Ronald Lacey.
Like the slimy, grimy, cowardly heel is really
yes.
It's a great character.
Yeah, and I can only think of him in that role. I don't know anything else he's done. So like he stands out for me as that performance.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, next question from Tom. Is there a movie that either earned new respect or you lost respect for prepping on this episode? I'm sure probably the answer for you is maybe Atlantic City, maybe Body Heat, something along those lines.
Atlantic City and Body Heat and Reds.
Yeah, Atlantic City was the one for me,
Yeah.
hands down with a bullet. I mean, that I just did not
give that
think,
movie a chance. Give that movie a
yes.
chance, people.
And it's not that hard to find. It's not one you have to go
very
deep
easy.
into the
It's
web
everywhere.
for. Yes.
Oh yeah, no, it's all over the place. You don't need your special Acorn hookups to the special underground, special cool guy movies. It's there for the rest of us plebes.
I would say if there's one that lost respect for me on Golden Pond, it's drab, it's boring, it's so reliant on name recognition of actors that
That's fair.
it just, I don't know, it doesn't do anything for me in any way.
No.
I also couldn't believe that at the actual Oscars that year, neither Henry Fonda or Katharine Hepburn was in attendance for their Oscar win. I was like, I know they were older at the time, but even still, they're like, we're not going. We just don't care. Like, Jane got up and did the speech for her dad, and she practically did the speech as if she had won. It was just kind of funny to like go back and watch.
It was funny. That's the only thing I watched from that year's Oscars too.
Yeah, so I don't think they cared that much about On Golden Pond, and I certainly didn't. Okay, Tom's next question: how big of an influence was the Reagan era on the movies of 1981? I will just say
we've spoken about that. I mean, I think,
too big. It's present in a lot of stuff there.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about that a lot. It's there. It's that,
Yeah, there's some boring movies
about that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, next question from Tom: what would be your drug of choice if you had to watch a marathon of only the actual 1981 Oscar nominees?
The nominees. You get to watch Raiders of the Lost Ark, Reds in Atlantic City, though.
You do.
So that is dope. Unfortunately, on Golden Pond and
Chariots.
Chariots are in there. So, what drug? It depends, because when the good movies are there, you want to be going, you want to be up, some coffee, a nice beer, and then sometimes, you probably need a Xanax when Chariots on Golden Pod come, just to go to sleep.
I was thinking about this, and this is strictly in the hypothetical world. I am not an advocate of using what I'm about to say, but I have unfortunately seen enough people in my life who have done extensive amounts of heroin, and I know the roller coaster of emotion that drug will give to you. And so if I have control of what I'm watching in what order, I want a really strong dose of heroin, and then I'm going to start with Raiders. I'm going to jump to Atlantic City as I'm peaking. Then by the time I start nodding off, maybe I can get to On Golden Pond and Chariots. And as I'm coming back to, Reds kicks in, and I can kind of ease my way back into reality. So I thought about this way too hard.
Before you shit your pants.
Yes. So thanks, Tom, for that. One final question from Tom.
Christ, Tom.
One more. If there's one quote from all of 1981 that sums up that year, what would it be? Tom's choice is, it's not the years, honey, it's the mileage, from Raiders of the Lost Ark. I don't know if there's a quote that really stands out to me that year.
Yeah, nothing's coming to my head. I'm trying to think, but there's nothing. It's probably from Raiders, though. That's probably the right movie, because that's the most culturally relevant now. So it is probably do this. When Marion says you can't do this, I'm American, feels somewhat prescient. A week after people are mad that they didn't get on their cruise ship in Africa because they were an hour late. So
that's a good one.
It's always relevant.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know if I could pull one off the spot. I didn't think about this pre-planning or anything like that.
It has to be Raiders, though.
Gotta be.
I think.
Something from that movie. Okay, let's shift over. Tom, thanks for all your questions.
Thanks, Tom.
I kid, Tom. If you're listening, this is all a joke. I love when you send questions. I appreciate it, and you're a good sport
Tom's
about
probably
it.
Watching us right now.
He probably is. Yes. His secret control behind the scenes. Okay, we're gonna shift over to your buddy over there, lead host of Best Picture Cast, Kieran B. I think I caught Kieran. I think I caught him at the right moment. He might have had a couple of beers because he rapid fired a few questions over. So Kieran,
nice.
Appreciate you for it. Let's start with, what does the heat meter read for body heat?
Oh man, all the way.
It's off the charts.
I mean, yeah, it goes to 11. On a scale of 10, it goes to 11.
Yeah, it's triple digits for me. I mean, this thing is like this movie. You could watch this thing on Christmas Day and start sweating. It's just
yeah,
you feel like
it
I
would
said,
melt snow.
yes, you feel it coming through the screen, the sweat. So yeah, good question there, Kieran. Next up, Kieran asked, and I'm going to turn this to you, Joey, because I don't know if I know this. I don't know if this makes sense to me because I live here in the Midwest, so this might be a New York thing. He said, "Have you ever been caught between the moon and New York City? If so, was Yacht Rock playing?"
Always.
Okay. Can you elaborate? I don't know
Always.
what that means. Is that a phrase of term? Is that something you guys use up there?
No, figure it out.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna have to do a little research because I don't know what between the moon and New York City means, but it sounds cool. And I love
It does sound very cool.
I love Yacht Rock, so I'm with Yacht Rock on that.
Oh, you're a big Yacht Rock guy?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I can get down on some Hall and Oates and all that stuff.
No, it's the Christopher Cross, Arthur's theme.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That's from the song. So
Gotcha.
He's Yacht Rock.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, last question from Kieran over there. This was my favorite question. If you were to embark on a great caper, which Muppet would you bring along and why?
Gonzo, all the way.
Gonzo. Okay. Any particular reason Gonzo is your caper buddy?
I think if you're thinking caper, you want Gonzo. You'll get into things. He's not too big, small. He'll get in. He won't shut the fuck up. So like that's a hindrance. I think Gonzo. I don't think Gonzo will narc you out if you get caught. I think he'll have your back.
That's a good point. I wanted to go with Gonzo or Animal because those are my two favorite Muppets.
Animal's too reckless.
They're both too loud for me. Animal's like off the charts, but Gonzo's just
too reckless.
I'm gonna go Fozzie Bear. I just think he's got the intellect and the acumen that.
But he turned real quick. I think the second they put handcuffs in, he'll be like, "It was acorns. It was acorns."
That's true. That's what though.
He'd be like, "Here's your phone number. Here's his phone number. This is what he said. I recorded it all."
I think I've got the charm to sway Fozzie Bear's loyalty. So I'm gonna put my faith in Fozzie.
I mean, how do you not love Fozzie Bear? He's he's top tier Muppet.
We haven't mentioned Muppets at all in this episode, but the Great Muppet Caper did come out in '81.
It did. I watched it.
It's great. You're a Muppet fan. I'm a Muppet fan. Best Picture Cast you guys have done an episode on the Muppets. Wonderful stuff over there.
I mean, one of our best segments ever from our first 15 ranking from 4 years ago. One of the questions we asked, if you could take any movie, and please go listen to this because the segment is way funnier than I'm going to do justice to. All Muppets except one human, what would it be? And thinking about putting Platoon and Defoe as the only human, and that scene with all Muppets.
I feel like I remember listening to this years ago
It's an all-time BPC segment, all time.
And Shirley Grant, who I know does a lot of the really cool social media stuff for you guys over there. Surely he's come up with something.
Of course,
related to this. Yes,
Grant always crushes it. So it's he sees something like that, he's just knocking it out of the park.
Yeah, that's excellent. All right, well, that does it for this recording, but this is only the beginning. Now that our picks have been made, it will ultimately be up to you, the fans, to decide what goes into the Almanac as the true winners. We'll be putting up social media polls across 4 platforms in the coming days and need your votes to be cast. The more places you follow the page, the more opportunities you have. Now, before we sign off, let's talk a little bit about what's to come in 2024. Joey, this episode's going up the first week of May. So what should listeners be looking out for from Best Picture Cast, Worst Picture Cast, and 1001 by 1?
Well, we have a lot of fun stuff coming up, guys. Best Picture Cast, Kieran and I in January, we started something we're calling On the Feed. It's movie news, questions, awards chatter. It's just different things going on in the movie world. So per month, so it's just kind of wrapping up the previous month. We did a lot of stuff with the awards and the Oscars. So we're doing different fun things. We have, going to have guests, and that's, monthly, really exciting. And, at this point in time, Shape of Water had just come out. Gladiator's recent episode, Gone with the Wind, will probably just come out when this is coming out. So a lot of good stuff. BPC, we're having a lot of fun. Airplane won our comedy tournament, so that episode's coming out. So a lot of really good stuff. In Worst Picture Cast world, we do twice a year rankings, and our Batman rankings will be coming out by this point, so we're very excited for that. Me, Grant, and Oz, and 1001 by One, we have some real cool stuff. So in May, probably the week after this, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf is coming on, and Mike from Cinemus is a guest on there. And Mike's always great and elevates everything he does, so that's really fun. Then after that, A Touch of Zen, and then we're not that far from Andrew here, kind of making his 1001 by One debut, and he will be coming on with us and talking about The Age of Gold.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I appreciate you guys extending the invite. And Age of Gold's a film I have never seen. I'm glad you threw something
Buñuel.
at me. Yeah, I'm gonna go deep down the Buñuel rabbit hole for that one. I know we're about a month out from when we're recording this right now to when we record that, so I'll probably spend a good chunk of the next month going back into all of his stuff. I've seen, Discreet Charm of the Bourgeois.
Yep. Yeah. There's some shorts. That's where I started with him.
Okay.
Because I didn't really, I had very little besides knowing what it is, and there's some stuff, and I watched, and I was like, oh, okay.
Have you gotten to Age of Gold yet?
Not yet. That'll be the week, the 2 weeks before that, I'll really get into it. But I've been just, we're doing a Michael Mann rankings before, so that's kind of where I'm at now. I'm working on that. So, but I'm mixing in a little bit of stuff here and there with Buñuel, and really, I'm really looking forward to Age of Gold. I'm really looking forward to that episode.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a lot of fun, and just all the things you plugged, I want to give you guys some extra shouts there. I think that what you guys have done over there with On the Feed, adding that additional sort of wing to the brand, has been, as a listener, something I've loved to hear you guys talk about some contemporary stuff in addition to going back in time. So for anyone listening now, if you're a fan of the Best Picture Cast primary episodes, check out Joey and Kieran On the Feed. It's a great way to kind of keep up on current events in the movie world, and you guys give your own little flavor to it. And I'm a big fan of what you guys do over there on the Feed. And also, Airplane, had no clue that thing still had the fan base it did. It just crushed social media. What was that?
I can't believe I lost by 17 votes.
Oh my God.
Bad. When I was in, we were in my wife and a couple of friends were in New Hampshire this weekend. And, I was like, all right, Superbad versus Airplane. Like, I'll be a fight, but I think Superbad's going to pull out. And, man, Airplane on Twitter was just dominating.
It's crazy. I mean, I'm a fan of Airplane. I think most people who love movies appreciate it, but I just didn't think it had the legs anymore. Like, I'm stunned that it dominated.
Apparently not. Apparently we're wrong. But listen, Steve, our good friend Action Steve, does not mess around with these spring tournaments, so...
And that's going to be a fun episode for you guys to record, I'm sure.
It's going to be a hysterical episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and also look out for an upcoming sixth episode in June, where I'll have two guests joining me. One being Joey's Best Picture Cast crew member, Artie B. Maybe or maybe not. We'll find out. Artie's the great mystery. He'll be making his...
entertaining as shit, though.
Artie's caused me a lot of stress already. I love Artie to death.
He might not be entertaining for you, but my God, he's going to be entertaining for us.
I'm so excited to have Artie on. I don't know.
He's going to be a great guest.
Artie brings so much energy to Best Picture Cast. He has so much. He's incredibly opinionated in the best way possible, and which is why I wanted him to be a guest on our show. And I'm excited for him to be here. Come hell or high water, I'm going to make it happen. And I'm also going to be joined on that episode by Tom Duncan from the Greatest Movie of All Time podcast, who's making his second guest appearance here. He was on 1998.
Is he going to ask if Crash is a sports movie?
He's going to come up with something crazy. That's Tom's MO. But yeah, so we'll have that episode next. And then in July, we will also have an incredible episode I have been already just deep diving into, but going to have you, Britt, and Adam St. John, the entire 1001 by One crew. We're going to be doing 1994. That is obviously the famous year: Shawshank Redemption, Pulp Fiction, Lion King, and Forrest Gump. I mean, those are sort of the big four. I know there's a lot of other movies that year.
Huge year.
It's going to be crazy. We've got some tricks up our sleeve for 1994. Britt and Adam, if you're listening, just be on your toes. That's all I'll say. Joey and I have some things up our sleeves for that. So again, You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, Letterboxd, Threads, TikTok, Facebook, everywhere. We're at Rev Almanac. We will have timestamps on each category in case you need to go back and listen to a certain part, as well as links to all of Joey's shows and all of the social media pages so you can keep up with everything. Like I said, Joey's the hardest working person I know in the movie podcast world. You got to support him in every way you can, so we'll make sure we shout you out and plug you everywhere, Joey.
Thank you, as always. I really appreciate the offer here. This was a great time.
This was my pleasure to have you on. You and Kieran were the two first people I wanted to have as guests. I'm glad I got you guys both for 2 episodes this season, and I just want to extend my entire gratitude to you guys for taking part and helping us get this brand up and running.
Oh, of course, that's awesome. You listen, as you know, as the strength of the community is important, right? All of us doing all this, like everybody's doing cool stuff. It's better when we all support each other and get in on it.
That's exactly, this. I'm lucky to have found a strong group of people that we're in this with, and I think we all help each other rise up, and that's only good for everybody in the podcast world. And I love listening to everyone else's shows, and I hope all the support continues. Again, in the description here, we will have links to every single person we've mentioned and talked about, and I hope you'll take the time to look into that description and check everybody else out, because a lot of people are doing a lot of cool stuff in the movie podcast space.
100%, really cool stuff. There's a lot to listen to, a lot of takes to go into that are a lot of fun and are very worth it.
Yes, absolutely. And actually, on the exact same day that this is releasing, so if you're listening to this right now on May 7th, I will have an episode dropping as a guest person on Below Freezing. I'm pretty excited to join. I'll be joining Adam and his wife Melissa over there. If you're a fan of Below Freezing,
Below Freezing's the best. It's just a great time. Adam and Melissa are all awesome. They're such fun hosts, and you could feel how good they are as hosts when their guests are on, because everyone is just light, has fun, and they're always funny and engaging.
Yes, and I try not to take preferential treatment to any particular podcast, because I love what everyone's doing there. Below Freezing is among my favorites to listen to, just in terms of entertainment value, because they're specifically talking about movies that are 32% or below on Rotten Tomatoes, so you're getting quote unquote bad movies. And I have to do so much prep for this in terms of all of these Oscar caliber movies, that it's nice to have kind of a change of pace, and I'll be doing Grandma's Boy with them, and it's going to be a damn good time.
Oh, that's amazing. That's one to look forward to for sure.
Absolutely. So Joey, thanks again, and we'll see you guys next time.